Darkness cloaked the Earth as millions of microscopic probes descended through the atmosphere. Commander Vex Thor observed the holographic display aboard the flagship Whisper of Conquest, his tentacles twitching with anticipation. Status report. Analyst Zy. The slender alien, skin shimmering like polished obsidian, manipulated a series of floating glyphs. Infiltration proceeding as planned, Commander. Our nanites have successfully integrated into 78% of major population centers. Full-spectrum data collection will commence in approximately 6 Earth rotations. Vex Thor's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair focused on the slowly rotating image of the blue planet. Excellent. And the natives remain oblivious? Completely. Zuinara's voice carried a hint of disbelief. Their primitive communication networks show no signs of awareness. They continue to bicker about trivial matters, politics, entertainment, the usual drivel of a pre-spaceflight species. A low, rumbling chuckle escaped Vex Thor's throat sac. Pathetic. To think the Galactic Council once considered this world a potential threat. They'll make fine drones for the hive fleets. Suddenly, a harsh buzzing filled the command center. A junior technician's eye stalks quivered as they called out, "Commander! Anomaly detected in Sector 7. Designate North America." Vex Thor whirled, multi-jointed legs clicking against the deck. "Explain. Now." The technician's claws danced across a shimmering interface. It's one of our probes, sir. All systems were functioning normally. Then, nothing. Complete signal loss. Malfunction? Zy suggested, voice tinged with uncertainty. Unlikely, the technician responded. Wait, there. Another probe, Sector 13, Europe. Same pattern, full functionality, then instant termination of signal. Vex Thor's skin darkened, a sign of agitation in his species. Impossible. Our technology is beyond anything these primitives could detect, let alone neutralize. Zy. Analysis. The analyst's tendrils writhed as she processed the incoming data. I don't understand, Commander. The probe's last transmissions show no signs of detection or countermeasures. It's as if they simply ceased to exist. Preposterous. Vex Thor spat, a gob of acidic saliva sizzling on the deck. Nothing can simply erase our... Sir. The technician's voice rose to a terrified screech. Multiple probe losses detected, spreading across all sectors. The holographic display flickered, showing a rapidly growing number of dead zones where their invisible web of surveillance was being shredded by an unseen force. Vex Thor's exoskeleton paled, a primal fear taking hold. What in the name of the Void Empress is happening down there? Oinara's voice shook as she offered the only explanation her logical mind could grasp. Commander, I believe we may have gravely underestimated this world. As the crew of the Whisper of Conquest watched in growing horror, their carefully laid plans began to unravel. Something on the planet below, something they couldn't begin to comprehend, was already fighting back. And this was only the beginning. The command center of the Whisper of Conquest buzzed with frantic activity. Days had passed since the initial probe failures, and the situation had only grown more perplexing. Vex Thor's tentacles coiled tightly around his command chair. Zy. Report. Now. The analyst's skin had dulled to a matte gray, a sign of extreme stress. Commander, our remaining probes they're picking up impossible data. Elaborate, Vex Thor growled, all 4 eyes fixed on the main display. Zy's tendrils danced across the hollow interface. Sir, we're detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. They defy our understanding of physics and the life form readings. She shuddered visibly. Spit it out, analyst. The probes are registering entities that shouldn't exist. Bipedal forms with impossible anatomies. Creatures that appear and vanish at will. And the audio recordings. Zy's voice dropped to a whisper. They're filled with names, Commander. Names that make no sense, yet strike terror into the local population. A junior technician, Krelnox, tentatively raised a claw. Permission to share findings, sir? Vex Thor nodded curtly. Krelnox's eye stalks quivered as he spoke. We've been monitoring their primitive information networks. There are stories, legends, of beings that stalk their nights, of creatures that defy explanation. They call them urban legends. Superstitious nonsense, Vex Thor bellowed. But sir, Krelnox continued, his voice barely audible, what if they're real? Silence fell over the command center, broken only by the soft hum of equipment. Zynara cleared her throat. Commander, permission to play an intercepted audio file? Vex Thor waved a tentacle in assent. A scratchy voice filled the air, speaking in the local tongue. I'm telling you, man, I saw it. 8 feet tall, arms like tree trunks, face like a goddamn nightmare. It was just standing there, at the edge of the woods. Then it howled. Jesus Christ, that sound? I've never run so fast in my life. Enough. Vex Thor slammed a tentacle against his chair. This is clearly some sort of primitive psychological warfare. They must have detected our probes somehow. Zynara's skin rippled with uncertainty. But sir, the energy readings, they're like nothing we've ever encountered. And reports are coming in from all over the planet. Vex Thor's eyes narrowed. Fine, we'll send in the Shadow Claws. Elite infiltrators, undetectable by any known technology. They'll get to the bottom of this farce. Deep in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, a team of 6 Shadow Claws materialized. Their bodies, a shifting mass of nanoscales, blended perfectly with the misty undergrowth. Team leader Dreklar's voice crackled over the neural link. Spread out. Standard recon formation. Remember, we're here to observe and report. Do not engage with the natives. The Shadow Claws moved silently through the ancient woods, their sensors probing for any sign of the anomalies reported by the probes. Suddenly, Operative Mira XS panic thoughts flooded the link. Contact. Unknown entity. Bearing 047. It's, oh void. What is that thing? The team converged on Mira XS position, only to find nothing. Dreklar's tendrils twitched nervously. Report, operative. What did you see? Mira XS form shimmered, struggling to maintain cohesion. It was huge, covered in fur, walked on 2 legs, but wrong. Its eyes, they glowed red in the darkness. A low, guttural growl echoed through the trees. The Shadow Claws froze, their adaptive camouflage unable to hide the fear rippling across their bodies. Converge on my position, Dreklar ordered, his usual confidence wavering. We move as one and... A roar split the night, primal and terrifying. Trees creaked and snapped as something massive moved through the forest. Fall back. Dreklar screamed through the neural link. Emergency extraction. Now. As the Shadow Claws scrambled to activate their recall beacons, a shadow fell over them. Something impossibly large, something that shouldn't exist, loomed above the alien infiltrators. The last transmission received by the Whisper of Conquest was a jumble of terrified thoughts and one crystal-clear image. A pair of glowing red eyes and a mouthful of fangs descending upon the camera. Then, nothing but static. In the command center, Vex Thor stared at the blank screen, his exoskeleton pale with shock. By the void. What have we awakened? The atmosphere aboard the Whisper of Conquest had shifted from confusion to palpable dread. Commander Vex Thor paced the command center, his usual confident stride replaced by erratic movements. This is madness, he hissed, acid dripping from his mandibles. An entire Shadow Claw team. Gone. And for what? Some primitive myth? Analyst Zynara approached cautiously, her skin a sickly pale green. Commander, I've compiled a report on the entities our probes have encountered. Vex Thor's eyes narrowed. Spare me your superstitious drivel, analyst. Sir, with all due respect, we cannot ignore this data. Zynara's tendrils trembled as she activated a holographic display. These, urban legends as the humans call them, they're not isolated incidents. They form patterns, terrifying patterns. Images flickered across the screen. A pale, elongated figure stalking through suburban streets. A hook-handed shadow by a lover's lane. a stitched-together monstrosity rising from a laboratory table. "Enough!" Vex Thor roared. "I will not have my invasion derailed by fairy tales." Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. Junior Technician Krelnox's eye stalks quivered as he called out, "Commander! We're detecting a massive energy surge from the planet's surface." "Source?" Vex Thor demanded. It's everywhere, sir." Krelnox's claws danced frantically across his console. "Energy readings are off the charts. It's as if the entire planet is waking up." On the main viewer, the image of Earth twisted and warped. Dark tendrils seemed to writhe across continents, while pinpricks of eerie light flickered in the depths of oceans. Ziwanara's voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, I think we may have triggered something. Something ancient. Something angry." Vex Thor's exoskeleton paled. "Impossible. No pre-spaceflight species could." His words were cut short as the ship shuddered violently. Emergency klaxons wailed as systems throughout the vessel began to fail. "Status report," Vex Thor bellowed, struggling to maintain his footing. Krelnox's voice was tinged with panic. "Sir, we're losing power. Something's draining us." The lights in the command center flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. As emergency backups sputtered to life, casting an eerie red glow, a collective gasp rippled through the crew. There, in the center of the room, stood a figure. Humanoid, yet wrong in ways that defied description. Its skin was a patchwork of mismatched flesh, crude stitches holding it together. Lifeless eyes surveyed the aliens with cold curiosity. Impossible. Vex Thor stammered, his bravado evaporating. "How did you get aboard? What are you?" The creature's mouth split into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of mismatched teeth. When it spoke, its voice was a cacophony of different tones and accents, as if multiple beings were speaking at once. "We are the forgotten," it rasped. "The feared. The stories whispered in the dark. You sought to conquer our world, little aliens. But you forgot one crucial detail." The being took a lumbering step forward, and the entire crew recoiled. "On Earth," it continued, "the things that go bump in the night are real, and we do not take kindly to uninvited guests." Vex Thor's combat instincts finally kicked in. "Security! Eliminate this abomination!" But as guards raised their weapons, tendrils of shadow coalesced around them. Spectral hands reached out from the darkness, dragging screaming aliens into oblivion. The stitched-together monstrosity chuckled, a sound like grinding bones. "Your weapons are useless here, Commander. You've awakened forces beyond your comprehension. The Boogeyman, the hook-handed killer, the Mothman, creatures of nightmare given form by human belief and fear. And now, we have a new playground." As if on cue, inhuman shrieks echoed through the ship's corridors. The sounds of tearing metal and alien screams filled the air. Ziwanara, her analytical mind struggling to process the impossible, turned to Vex Thor. "Commander, what do we do?" For the first time in his long military career, Vex Thor had no answer. As the lights flickered again, he caught glimpses of other nightmarish forms materializing throughout the command center. A tall, faceless figure in a suit. A blood-soaked woman with a Glasgow smile. A creature of teeth and shadow that should not exist in three-dimensional space. This, Vex Thor realized with dawning horror, is no longer an invasion. It's a nightmare. And we are no longer the predators. As the embodiments of humanity's darkest fears closed in, the proud alien commander did the only thing left to do. He screamed. The whisper of conquest hung silent in Earth's orbit, its once pristine hull now marred by impossible claw marks and ethereal burns. Inside, the corridors echoed with an unnatural quiet, broken only by the occasional skittering of something in the shadows. On the planet below, humanity remained blissfully unaware of the cosmic horror unfolding above them. But things were changing, subtly at first, then with increasing intensity. In a small town in Iowa, Sheriff Darlene Hawkins rubbed her tired eyes, staring at the growing pile of missing persons reports on her desk. "What in God's name is going on?" she muttered. Deputy Cole Erickson burst into the office, his usually stoic face pale with shock. "Sheriff, you gotta see this." They raced to his patrol car, sirens blaring as they sped towards the old Millerson farm. As they crested the hill, Darlene's jaw dropped. There, carved into the cornfield, was an enormous circle of intricate patterns. "Crop circles," Cole whispered, "just like my grandpappy used to talk about. But I always thought they were just stories." Darlene's radio crackled to life. "Sheriff, we've got reports of a giant humanoid creature near the reservoir. Witnesses say it's at least 12 feet tall." "Bigfoot," Cole breathed, his eyes wide. Darlene gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Don't be ridiculous, Deputy. There's gotta be a rational explanation for all this." But as the days wore on, rationality became increasingly hard to cling to. Reports flooded in from across the globe. A small Japanese village terrorized by a ghostly woman with long black hair, demanding to know if she was beautiful. Campers in the Australian outback swearing they'd seen a giant rabbit-eared creature stealing children. Entire small towns in Eastern Europe going silent, their populations replaced by eerie, plastic-skinned duplicates. The internet exploded with theories, each wilder than the last. #Urban Legends Are Real began trending worldwide. In New York City, famed cryptozoologist Dr. Evelyn Marsh found herself in the unlikely position of being taken seriously for the first time in her career. News vans crowded outside her modest apartment as she tried to make sense of the flood of data pouring in. "It's as if," she explained to a captivated global audience, "every story, every legend, every campfire tale, they're all coming true at once. The veil between myth and reality is tearing apart." Meanwhile, in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, a group of hikers huddled around a campfire, their eyes darting nervously at every snapping twig. "I'm telling you," whispered Jamal, his voice shaking, "I saw it, just beyond that ridge. Eyes glowing red in the darkness. It was the Mothman." His friend Lisa scoffed, though her laughter held a nervous edge. "Come on, Jay. You're letting all this craziness get to you. Mothman's from West Virginia. Not?" A bone-chilling screech split the night air, followed by the sound of massive wings beating. The campfire flickered, casting monstrous shadows as something huge blotted out the stars above. "Run!" Jamal screamed, but as the group scattered, they realized with growing horror that the forest around them had changed. Trees twisted into impossible shapes. Shadows moved with malevolent purpose. And was that slender man standing just beyond the tree-line? Back in Iowa, Sheriff Hawkins and Deputy Erickson found themselves facing down a creature that, by all rights, shouldn't exist. The Goat Man of local legend stood before them, a twisted amalgamation of man and beast, its eyes glowing with unholy fire. "This is impossible," Darlene muttered, her pistol trained on the creature. The Goat Man tilted its horned head, regarding them with an unsettling intelligence. When it spoke, its voice was a guttural rasp that sent shivers down their spines. "Impossible?" it bleated, a horrific parody of laughter escaping its muzzle. "Oh, foolish humans. You've spent so long convincing yourselves we weren't real. But we were always here, waiting in the shadows of your imagination. And now we're free." As if to punctuate its point, a ghostly car roared past on the road behind them, its phantom passengers screaming in eternal torment. The local legend of the Hell Highway come to terrifying life. Cole's hand shook as he reached for his radio. "This is Deputy Erickson. We need all available units at..." His words were cut short as the Goat Man lunged, moving with impossible speed. Darlene fired, her bullets seeming to pass harmlessly through the creature's form. As chaos descended upon the quiet Iowa night, similar scenes played out across the globe. The Loch Ness Monster rose from the depths, capsizing tourist boats. The Jersey Devil swooped through suburban neighborhoods, snatching pets and terrorizing residents. And in Japan, a giant, fire-breathing lizard emerged from the sea, its roar shaking skyscrapers to their foundations. Humanity found itself facing a nightmare made real, as every dark corner of their collective imagination sprang to life. The age of urban legends had begun, and the world would never be the same. High above, aboard the Whisper of Conquest, Commander Vex Thor huddled in a dark corner, his once proud form reduced to a quivering mass. As inhuman shapes prowled the corridors, seeking fresh prey, he realized the terrible truth. In their arrogance, they had unleashed something far beyond their control. And now, both alien and human alike would face the consequences of awakening the slumbering myths of Earth. The global situation had devolved into chaos. Governments worldwide struggled to maintain order as the impossible became everyday reality. Military forces found themselves woefully unprepared to combat threats that defied the laws of physics and reason. In Washington, D.C., a hastily assembled task force of scientists, folklorists, and military strategists gathered in a secure underground bunker. The tension in the room was palpable as they faced the unthinkable. General Thaddeus Blackwood, a grizzled veteran of countless conflicts, addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I never thought I'd say this, but we're at war with fairy tales. I need options, and I need them yesterday." Dr. Evelyn Marsh, the cryptozoologist from New York, cleared her throat. "General, with all due respect, conventional warfare won't work here. These entities, they operate on a different level of reality. We need to fight fire with fire." "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Blackwood's eyes narrowed. Evelyn took a deep breath. "We need to weaponize belief. These creatures draw power from human fear and imagination. If we can turn that against them..." Meanwhile, in the skies above North America, something unprecedented was occurring. The Whisper of Conquest, once a symbol of alien superiority, now fled in blind panic. Its corridors had become a nightmarish labyrinth where the laws of space and time held no sway. Commander Vex Thor, his exoskeleton cracked and oozing, dragged himself towards the escape pods. Behind him, the agonized screams of his crew echoed, punctuated by sounds no sane mind could process. "This can't be happening," he muttered, his once commanding voice reduced to a whimper. "We are the conquerors, the apex predators of the galaxy. How could these stories defeat us?" A chilling laugh froze him in his tracks. There, blocking his path, stood a figure that made his alien blood run cold. It appeared to be a human child, but its eyes were solid black, and its smile was far too wide, filled with needle-sharp teeth. "Oh, silly alien," the child thing giggled, its voice a discordant mix of youth and ancient malevolence. "Don't you know? The best stories always have a twist ending." Vex Thor screamed as shadows engulfed him, dragging him into a realm of perpetual nightmare. Back on Earth, humanity began to adapt, as it always did. In the face of the incomprehensible, people found new ways to survive. In a small town in Maine, local librarian Mildred Peabody became an unlikely hero. Her encyclopedic knowledge of folklore and urban legends proved invaluable in predicting and countering the threats that plagued her community. "Remember, dearies," she instructed a group of wide-eyed children, "if you hear scratching at your window at night, that's not your dog. Recite the rhyme I taught you, and whatever you do, don't look outside." Across the globe, similar scenes played out. Ancient protective rituals were revived, updated for the modern age. Salt circles gave way to electromagnetic fields. Blessed silver bullets were mass-produced in factories. The internet became a battleground of memes and counter-memes, each vying to shape the collective unconscious. But for every victory humanity claimed, the creatures of legend seemed to grow stronger, more numerous. It was as if centuries of suppressed belief were erupting all at once, and the floodgates of imagination had been thrown wide open. In the Pacific Northwest, the Shadowclaw team that had disappeared weeks ago suddenly re-emerged. But they were changed. Their sleek, technological forms had been warped, twisted into hybrid abominations that were part alien, part cryptid. Dreklar, once the proud team leader, now sported the antlers of a Wendigo and moved with the silent grace of a Sasquatch. His neural link, once connected to the hive mind of his species, now pulsed with the primal energy of the forest. "We see now," he growled, addressing a terrified group of campers. "We understand the truth of this world, and we will never be prey again." The hybrid aliens turned cryptids vanished into the mist, leaving behind only legends and terrified whispers. As the crisis deepened, an unlikely alliance began to form. Humans, desperate for any advantage, turned to the very aliens they had once feared as invaders. In a secret facility in Nevada, Sheriff Darlene Hawkins found herself face-to-face with a battered but still imperious Cy. "Let me get this straight," Darlene said, eyeing the alien analyst warily. "You want to help us?" Cy's skin rippled with a mix of fear and determination. "We have no choice, human. Our technology, our science, it's useless against these entities. But your species has been living with these nightmares for millennia. You've developed immunities, defenses we lack." Darlene's hand instinctively went to the iron horseshoe hanging around her neck, a gift from her grandmother that had saved her life more than once in recent weeks. "And what do you get out of this deal?" she asked, suspicion evident in her voice. Cy's multiple eyes blinked in unison. "Survival. And perhaps a chance to understand. Your world, your imagination, it's unlike anything we've encountered in our galactic conquests. If we can harness that power..." As the uneasy alliance between human and alien began to take shape, a new chapter in Earth's history was being written. The hunters had become the hunted, and in the face of nightmares made flesh, age-old enemies were forced to stand together. But even as hope flickered to life, darker forces gathered on the horizon. For in awakening Earth's slumbering legends, something far more ancient and terrible had taken notice, and its hunger knew no bounds. The unlikely alliance between humans and the remnants of the alien invasion force had begun to bear fruit. In hidden laboratories and makeshift war rooms across the globe, the combined knowledge of Earth's folklore and advanced extraterrestrial technology was being weaponized against the nightmarish onslaught. Dr. Evelyn Marsh stood before a holographic display, her eyes gleaming with a mix of scientific curiosity and barely contained excitement. Beside her, Cy manipulated alien glyphs with her tendrils, fine-tuning the device they had co-created. "I still can't quite believe it," Evelyn murmured, watching as the hologram shifted to display a three-dimensional model of a Wendigo. "We're literally quantifying the unquantifiable." Cy's skin rippled in what Evelyn had come to recognize as the alien equivalent of a smile. "Your species' ability to conceptualize the impossible is remarkable. We've conquered worlds with far more advanced technology, yet none possess this spark of creation." Their moment of scientific camaraderie was interrupted as General Blackwood burst into the lab, his face grim. "We've got a situation in Eastern Europe. The Baba Yaga has been spotted, and she's not alone." The holographic display flickered, showing satellite imagery of a dark forest. At its edge, a chicken-legged hut lumbered between the trees, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. But it was what followed that caused even the battle-hardened general to pale. A massive shape moved through the canopy, its form constantly shifting and changing. One moment it appeared as a colossal bear, the next a three-headed dragon, then a storm giant wreathed in lightning. "What in God's name is that?" Blackwood demanded. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. It's HFY the Deathless, the immortal sorcerer from Slavic mythology. But he was just a story, a cautionary tale. Cy's tendrils writhed in agitation. "It seems, Dr. Marsh, that the distinction between story and reality has become fluid." As they watched, HFY's ever-changing form swept aside military forces like toys, their weapons having no more effect than a child's pop gun. "How do we stop something that can't die?" Blackwood growled, his fists clenched in frustration. Evelyn's mind raced, recalling half-remembered folktales and legends. In the stories, HFY's soul was hidden, yes. It was hidden inside a needle, inside an egg, inside a duck, inside a hare, inside an iron chest buried under an oak tree on an island. Cy's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. "That's absurdly complex. But perhaps we can use that complexity against it." Over the next few hours, a plan took shape. It was crazy, desperate, and flew in the face of all logic, which, given their current reality, made it perfect. Meanwhile, in a small village on the outskirts of the affected area, a young girl named Anya huddled with her family in their root cellar. The ground shook with the footsteps of giants, and the air was filled with an otherworldly keening. "Babushka," Anya whispered, clutching her grandmother's hand, "will the stories you told me, will they protect us?" The old woman's eyes sparkled with a mixture of fear and determination. "Ah, my little one, the stories, they have always protected us. We just forgot how to listen." Across the world, similar scenes played out. People turned to their oldest traditions, their most primal beliefs, seeking shelter from the storm of myth made real. In the Nevada desert, Sheriff Darlene Hawkins stood before a motley crew of humans and aliens. The plan was insane, but it was all they had. "All right, folks," she drawled, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her gut. "We're going to build ourselves a magic quest, just like in the old stories. We've got 7 tasks, 7 champions, and 1 shot at saving the world. Any volunteers?" To her surprise, hands, both human and alien, raised without hesitation. As the unlikely team prepared for their mission, Dr. Marsh made a startling discovery. Poring over data collected from around the world, she noticed a pattern emerging. "It's not random," she breathed, her eyes wide. "The manifestations, the creatures, they're following a narrative structure." Zynara leaned in, her alien features creased with concentration. "Explain." Evelyn's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up charts and graphs. "Look, the initial sightings, they were isolated incidents, your classic monster of the week scenarios. But now we're seeing overarching themes, recurring characters. It's as if reality itself is being rewritten into some grand story." Zynara finished, her voice filled with awe and terror. As this realization sank in, a new question arose. If their world was becoming a story, who or what was the author? High above the earth, unnoticed by human or alien sensors, a vast cosmic entity stirred. It had slumbered for eons, drifting through the void between realities. But now, awakened by the surge of belief and imagination, its attention turned to the tiny blue planet below. Tendrils of thought, vast beyond comprehension, reached out. In its unfathomable mind, worlds were but pages, galaxies mere words in an eternal narrative. And Earth, with its newly awakened potential, called to it like a siren's song. As Anya's grandmother had said, the stories had always protected humanity. But now, as the boundaries between myth and reality crumbled, those same stories threatened to unmake the very fabric of their world. The stage was set for a battle not just for survival, but for the very nature of reality itself. And as our heroes prepared to embark on their desperate quest, they remained unaware that they were but characters in a tale far grander and more terrifying than they could possibly imagine. The storyteller had awakened, and its pen was poised to rewrite the cosmos. As the ragtag team of humans and aliens embarked on their desperate quest, the world around them continued to unravel. Reality itself seemed to be fraying at the edges, with the impossible becoming commonplace and the familiar turning strange and dangerous. In what was once downtown Tokyo, a group of survivors huddled in the shadow of a skyscraper that now resembled a massive, twisting pagoda. Kaiju roamed the streets, their battles with mecha defenders leaving scars across the cityscape. Akira, a former salaryman turned reluctant hero, clutched a katana that hummed with otherworldly energy. Beside him, an alien refugee named Zelthrak manipulated a device that looked like a cross between a smartphone and a Ouija board. "The readings are off the charts," Zelthrak chittered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "The concentration of narrative energy here is unlike anything we've seen." Akira's eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon. "It's the stories," he muttered. "All those manga, anime, urban legends, they're all coming to life at once." A piercing shriek split the air, and the group looked up to see a massive, serpentine form coiling around Tokyo Tower. The dragon's scales shimmered with an impossible iridescence, its eyes glowing with ancient malevolence. That's the Yamada no Aroki," an elderly woman gasped, her wrinkled hands clutching a tattered book of folklore. "But how? It was slain by Susanoo in the ancient tales. As if in response to her words, a figure materialized atop a nearby building. Clad in gleaming armor that seemed to be made of pure light, the warrior raised a sword that crackled with divine energy. The gods, Akira breathed. They're returning too. As Susanoo charged towards his ancient foe, the sky above Tokyo ripped open. Through the tear, glimpses of other realities could be seen. Worlds of pure fantasy, realms of sci-fi wonder, and nightmarish dimensions that defied description. Meanwhile, in the forests of Eastern Europe, Sheriff Darlene Hawkins and her unlikely allies crept through the underbrush. Their goal, to reassemble the hidden pieces of Kashiai's soul and end his rampage. Darlene's hand tightened around the iron horseshoe hanging from her neck. Beside her, Zoanara's tendrils writhed with nervous energy. "I still don't understand," the alien analyst whispered. "How can a being's soul be hidden in such mundane objects?" Darlene's lips quirked in a humorless smile. "That's the power of a good story, sugar. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be believed." Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to shift. Roots erupted from the earth, twisting into the shape of gnarled hands that clawed at their ankles. "Ali Baba Yaga." Dr. Evelyn Marsh cried out in warning. "She must know we're here." As the team fought against the animated forest, a cackling laugh echoed through the trees. The chicken-legged hut appeared, its windows glowing with an eerie light. "Little mice," a voice like creaking wood and rattling bones called out. "Come to play with forces beyond your kin? Foolish, foolish creatures." Darlene raised her shotgun, loaded with shells blessed by 7 different faiths. "Lady, where I come from, we don't take kindly to witches messing with our woods." As the battle raged, Dr. Marsh made a startling realization. "Wait," she called out. This isn't how the story's supposed to go. Baba Yaga, in the old tales, she sometimes helped heroes on their quests." The cackling stopped abruptly. The hut creaked and groaned, turning to face Evelyn. "Ah," the witch's voice softened, taking on an almost maternal tone. "A scholar of the old ways. Perhaps there's hope for you yet." Back in Nevada, General Blackwood stared at screens showing chaos unfolding across the globe. Reports flooded in of ancient gods walking the earth, cryptids emerging from every shadow, and the very laws of physics bending to the whims of collective belief. "It's like the whole damn world's gone mad," he muttered. A junior analyst, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement, approached tentatively. "Sir, we've detected something big." The main screen flickered to life, showing a view of Earth from orbit. But there, looming behind the planet, was something. A vast, shadowy presence that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could comprehend. "My God," Blackwood breathed. "What is that thing?" The analyst's voice shook as she replied, "Sir, based on the data we're receiving, we think it might be the storyteller." As this revelation sent shockwaves through the command center, the cosmic entity's attention focused more intently on the tiny blue world below. In its unfathomable mind, realities collided and merged, mythologies intertwined, and the very concept of truth became fluid. Earth had become a nexus of stories, a crucible of imagination made manifest. And the storyteller? The storyteller was hungry for new tales. Across the planet, people began to realize a terrifying truth. Their fears, their beliefs, their very imagination was shaping the world around them. A child's nightmare could spawn monsters in the shadows. A conspiracy theorist's ravings could rewrite history before their eyes. In this new reality, fear became the ultimate currency. Those who could control their terror, who could believe in hope even in the face of cosmic horror, found themselves wielding incredible power. As Darlene's team faced off against Baba Yaga, as Akira and his allies battled myth made flesh in Tokyo, as countless others struggled to survive in a world gone mad, a singular question emerged. In a reality where belief shapes existence, what story will humanity choose to tell? The fate of not just Earth, but of all possible worlds, hung in the balance. And the storyteller's pen hovered, poised to write the final chapter. The world teetered on the brink of oblivion, reality itself fraying at the seams as the storyteller's influence grew. Yet in this darkest hour, something unexpected began to emerge. A spark of hope kindled by the very power that threatened to unmake everything. In the heart of Tokyo, Akira stood atop a crumbling skyscraper, his katana raised defiantly against the writhing mass of mythical creatures that filled the sky. Beside him, Zelthrak's alien technology pulsed with an otherworldly glow. "It's not working," Zelthrak chittered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Our weapons are science. They're useless against pure narrative force." Akira's eyes narrowed, a realization dawning. "Then we stop fighting the story," he said softly. "We become part of it." With a deep breath, Akira closed his eyes and began to speak. His words, carried on the wind, told of hope in the face of despair, of light pushing back the darkness. As he spoke, the katana in his hand began to glow, its blade transforming into pure, radiant energy. Across the globe, similar scenes unfolded. People, human and alien alike, began to tell stories, not of fear and destruction, but of courage, unity, and the indomitable spirit of life itself. In the forests of Eastern Europe, Sheriff Darlene Hawkins faced down Baba Yaga, her iron horseshoe glowing with an inner fire. "You want a story, old woman?" Darlene called out, her voice steady. "Well, let me tell you one. It's about a world where the impossible becomes possible, where enemies become allies, and where even the darkest night gives way to dawn." As she spoke, the forest around them began to shift. The gnarled, threatening trees softened, their branches reaching out not to ensnare, but to offer support. Baba Yaga cackled, but there was a note of approval in her ancient voice. "Clever, clever little one. You begin to understand the true power of tales." Dr. Evelyn Marsh stepped forward, her eyes shining with newfound understanding. "It's not about defeating the stories," she breathed. "It's about embracing them, guiding them." Zuinara's skin rippled with excitement. "Of course. Your human myths, they're not just entertainment, they're survival mechanisms. Ways of understanding and shaping your reality." As this realization spread, a change rippled across the earth. The chaotic maelstrom of unleashed mythology began to coalesce, guided by the collective will of humanity and their newfound alien allies. In Nevada, General Blackwood watched in awe as the screens before him showed a world transforming. "I'll be damned," he muttered. "They're actually doing it." The junior analyst, tears streaming down her face, pointed to the main display. "Sir, look." The vast, cosmic presence of the storyteller loomed ever larger. But now, tendrils of light reached out from the earth, weaving a new narrative into the fabric of reality itself. Across the planet, humans and aliens joined hands, and tentacles and claws, their voices rising in a chorus of shared story. They spoke of a universe where diversity was strength, where the unknown was not to be feared but explored, where even the darkest legends could be transformed by understanding and compassion. In Tokyo, Akira's glowing blade cut through the chaos, not destroying the mythical beings but reshaping them. Kaiju and mecha alike stood down, becoming guardians rather than destroyers. In the European forest, Kashiai the Deathless emerged, his form no longer a terrifying abomination but a majestic blend of all living things. Baba Yaga's chicken-legged hut settled gently to the ground, its windows warm and inviting. And high above, the storyteller paused, its unfathomable mind intrigued by the tale unfolding before it. This was something new, something unexpected. In that moment of cosmic hesitation, humanity seized its chance. The combined power of human imagination and alien technology surged forth, not to banish the storyteller, but to communicate with it. Dr. Marsh's voice, amplified by Zuinara's devices, rang out across realities. "Great storyteller, we offer you not just one tale, but infinite stories. A universe of endless possibility, where every belief, every dream, every legend has a place." The storyteller's vast consciousness probed this offer, tasting the richness of potential it held. Slowly, impossibly, it began to withdraw, not in defeat, but in eager anticipation of the tales yet to come. As the cosmic entity receded, the tears in reality began to mend. But the world that emerged was forever changed. The boundary between myth and reality remained permeable, a source of both wonder and challenge for this new, united Earth. Months later, Sheriff Darlene Hawkins stood atop a hill overlooking her small Iowa town. Beside her, Zuanara's form shimmered in the sunset light. "You know," Darlene drawled, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm gonna miss all the excitement." Zuanara's skin rippled in amusement. "Oh, my dear Sheriff, the excitement is only beginning. We have a whole universe of stories to explore." As if on cue, a shimmer in the air revealed a doorway to somewhere else. A new world, a new adventure waiting to be written. Darlene grinned, adjusting her hat. "Well then, partner, shall we see what tale we can tell next?" And as human and alien stepped through the portal together, the storyteller watched with infinite patience and endless curiosity. For it had discovered a truth as old as existence itself. The greatest stories are those that never truly end, but continue to grow, to change, and to inspire across the vastness of time and space. In embracing their myths, in facing their fears, humanity had not just saved their world. They had opened the door to countless others. The urban legends of Earth had become a bridge to the stars, a promise of adventures yet to come. And somewhere in the cosmic depths, the storyteller's pen hovered over the blank page of eternity, ready to chronicle the next chapter in this grandest of tales. The Yendi, or perhaps just the beginning.